Now, let's talk about something completely different. You might like to add your thoughts on this as well. Lockdown has been an incredibly difficult time for all of us, but for stroke survivors who have aphasia, it may be an even more isolating and lonely time. A stroke happens every 5 minutes in the UK, and 1 in 3 of those stroke survivors will have aphasia, according to the Stroke Association. Now, this can affect a person's ability to speak, to read, to write, and even their ability to understand speech and use numbers as well. Now, BBC reporter Vicky, whose mum has aphasia, has been finding out how other stroke survivors have been navigating lockdown, and joins us now, Vicky, on the line. Thank you for joining us, Vicky. First of all, just
Thank
tell
you,
us
Sarah.
tell us about your mum and sort of before and after stroke, because of course, nobody expects to have a stroke, and your mum not alone in this.
Thank you so much for having me this morning on the program, Sarah. Really appreciate your time. So my mum had a stroke when I was 4. So actually, unfortunately, I don't know what life was like before her having a stroke. To paint a picture, apparently at the hospital bed, my brother, as he saw the stroke happen, was affected by it in quite a way, traumatized. But because I just saw my mum, I was so young, I climbed onto the bed and was like, "Hi, mum, what's up?" So that's all I've known. And I've been a carer for many years, and obviously a best friend and a daughter as well, all merged into one. And what I've noticed throughout this last year in lockdown, that my mum's speech has deteriorated, really badly affected it in the first lockdown, so much so that she has a support group that she attends every week, which has been a lifeline, called Discover, and she has been attending for over 20 years. But so much so that I said, okay, we need to organize more online sessions and more chats with people, because it was certain words that are so basic and so normal that they just completely disappeared. And it was very frustrating to see my mum in that kind of way.
And it must be so incredibly frustrating when you just know what you want to say, but you just can't communicate that to the person you're trying to say it to.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Especially in circumstances when it's really stressful, a lot's going on, a lot of pressure, and it can be demotivating and demoralizing as well, to wanting to keep trying to to put your words out there. And it, especially in a situation, for example, my mum was in a car accident a long time ago, and thankfully everyone was all right. But when it was such a high pressure situation, when the person who she was involved with spoke to her, he immediately thought that she was drunk. And it's because it's such a high pressure situation. You're trying to get your words out and you're frustrated, and you just wish you'd be able to communicate how you're feeling, and put your points across.
Interesting as well, because really devastating that your mum, when she was so young and you were so young, had this stroke. But actually, what I loved is that kind of acceptance that you had, because you were 4 and she was your mum and you don't make judgments. But actually, what must be really difficult for people with aphasia is that people, like you just described, do make judgments.
Of course, I spent the entirety of my childhood defending disabled people, defending stroke survivors, those with aphasia, introducing, friends, boyfriends, and how you speak to my mom. I had to educate people, by the way, she's a human being. You can talk to her normally. She understands all the information. But that's the complexities of aphasia, is that it varies with so many different people and different types of aphasia, depending on how much information you can retain, if you need to slow down your words. And in this documentary, I've spoken to a number of participants. And even in the last couple of weeks, Ben, I've been speaking to a number of different ages of stroke survivors as well. And that's a key thing as well, that it can happen to anyone at any time. I've spoken to 19-year-olds to 75-year-olds. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to raise awareness on aphasia, because it can happen to anyone. And it's important for it to be highlighted, to be aware if someone is going to take their time and be a bit slower with pronouncing their words. It's just being kind and being patient.
Let's hear a clip from the documentary now. This is where you're speaking to your mum.
Chris Carter, sorry, speak. I'm sorry, it's fine.
No, just take your time.
I can't speak.
How old are you?
Ah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
70.
No, that's not wrong.
Close to 70.
No. 50.
50. Right. Well, that's a blatant lie, but... And how old were you when you had your stroke?
A long time. 1, 2 years, and then 3, 4, 5, 6.
26 years ago.
Yes.
Do you remember the moment of having the stroke?
Ambulance. Then nothing really.
I love the relationship you have with your mum there, Vicky. You know, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because you kind of the temptation is to just jump in and fill the gaps and answer yourself. But I love that humour that's creeping in there as well.
To be honest, she doesn't look a day over 50. She's gorgeous. I hope to look like her when I grow up. Yeah, and I think that clip highlights, hopefully, our relationship, and also the difficulties of the last year on her speech. That was taken, I think, in September when I was with her for a month, and it's just highlighting how difficult it is for everyone to communicate during this time who has aphasia. And my mum's not the only person who's highlighted this. You know, Brian in the documentary has as well. And Nikki in the documentary has also highlighted how important it is to have these Zoom sessions online with organisations and charities and support groups like Discover. So then there is a community of people to practice their speech, but also have people to connect with and chat with and develop their potential and their language skills as well.
I think we've all met people who've been in that situation, the same situation as your mum, and really struggle to speak as a consequence. And it's so difficult because you don't want to patronise people. And sometimes the temptation is just not to get involved in a conversation because you don't want to do the wrong thing.
Yes, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Many times I want to help my mum and jump in and help with the word, which you heard, with the ambulance section. But lately now I've said, no, mum, I'm not going to help you. I'm going to sit here and I want you to talk specifically about what you had for dinner. Address each ingredient. So then she gets that practice. And I feel awful doing it, but I know in the long run, it's more beneficial that way. And she loves the TV series, my mum. That's the thing with aphasia. Not everyone can understand the complexities of, Line of Duty or any TV show, but my mum loves them. Heavy relies on them, especially throughout lockdown. And I've said, start repeating the words that you've been watching in the programme so you can practice that extra additional moments during the evening.
This is a mission, I suppose, a real mission of love. I mean, we all delve into these subjects as journalists, but actually doing something that's so personal to you and that you've sort of lived with as you were growing up. What does your mum feel about this? She must be very proud.
Originally, I sent her the documentary. She said, "Oh, it's very long." So that's classic mum. But last night when I put all the pieces together and I've put up online as well everyone's information about their stories and audio sections as well, my mum said thanks, and she was very excited to hear it being played and me speak about it as well. So it's been a pleasure for you to play it and raise awareness of this issue and the documentary, and I'm forever grateful.
Oh, it's so good to talk to you, Vicky. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme. Real pleasure to have you as our guest today, Vicky Carter there. And you can actually hear that, Jen, that documentary. She's one of our journalists here, and you can hear Vicky's documentary tonight, 9:30, BBC Radio Sussex and BBC Radio Surrey. And if you have been affected, then do give us a call if you've got anything to add to that.
Call 0800 587 1046.
BBC Radio Surrey.
As Vicky points out, this will affect a lot of people. A stroke happens every 5 minutes in the UK. 1 in 3 of those stroke survivors will have aphasia, which Vicky was talking about there, investigates further in her documentary tonight.
This